What's up, Pags here at MEI Studio. This time we're looking at a new company out of a country we've looked at a few times now, Australia. We're going to take a look at a longtime favorite of the DIY community, Beesneez, and the Elly FET mic, this time on the Mic Locker. Before we get into the studio tests, let's take a short look at the company behind the mic, Beesneez. Founded in 2002, Ben Sneesby arrived on the scene at a time that we've covered before on this channel. Low-quality capsules coming out of Asia, which were being bought up by manufacturers that were trying to pump out cheap condenser microphones as the home studio boom was underway. Ben wasn't a fan, but he had the mindset that if these companies were able to manufacture these intricate devices, so could he. Except he could control the quality of the products much better. Must be something in the water down under, since this was the same mindset as Rode, who took their in-house manufacturing to the absolute extreme. Beesneez started providing a better quality capsule to other small manufacturers and the DIY community. At the beginning, they were outsourcing their mic bodies to focus more on capsule production and had 3 mics available: the Jade, the James, and the Arabella. After a while, Ben felt that they should be able to handle more of the manufacturing, and they began producing bodies, head baskets, and transformers all in-house with some cutting-edge machinery. The line of mics then steadily increased to allow the company to really take a bite out of the boutique mic market. Originally, the mics were aimed to be tributes to classic mic designs, not clones per se, but as Ben stated in a recent interview, you have to give the customer what they want, because if you're not going to build it, someone else will. So while many of the mics in their current 4 different lines of mics either share a name or a visual aspect close to an original classic style of mic, the Beesneez mics have taken steps to ensure that modern methods in manufacturing and electronics can give their mics an edge over the typical clones that can be found everywhere else. One of the main components, besides their in-house machined capsules, is their transformers. Like Alder Audio, which we looked at not too long ago, Beesneez decided to go with toroidal transformers rather than standard laminated stacked metals. The toroidal transformer allows for less DC resistance and capacitance with higher inductance, which leaves the mic's tonal characteristics open in the top end and won't be choked out dynamically. When I met Ben a couple years ago at AES, we got into a great conversation about switches on mics and the issues that they cause. Mainly performance specs in the way of sensitivity. By removing switches, one of their 87 style mics boasts an added gain of about 6 dB. The 4 lines of mics are the Tribute series, the most expensive, which look similar to classic mics but have modern advancements made to the design to further evolve the sonic characteristics of the style of mics they pay tribute to, which are based on the classic U47, the ELAM 251. The second line is the Producer series, which is a set of really robust, solid, and aesthetically pleasing looking mics that kind of resemble the designs of the U47, but not quite. These are all original designs with premium metalwork. The third line is the Classic series, which are the quote-unquote clone series of many classic designs such as the 251, the U87, U67, C12, M49, and the C12A, with variants depending on what your needs are. The last line is the Studio line, which Ben has referred to as the everyday hammer line that are the most cost-effective in any of the series. This line includes the only SDCs in the Beesneez lineup and have a more utilitarian look to them, but still pretty at the same time. The less bulky metalwork helps keep the cost down so that folks like me can afford them, and it's here that our subject today comes from, the Elly FET. The Elly FET features the same electronics and parts as its Producer series counterpart, including the transformer, which in this case is not a toroidal, and the K7, which is a K47 style capsule, which is a capsule I can't seem to either get enough of or get away from. I haven't figured that out yet, but We use a pair of mini K47s from Roswell Audio on the piano, whose capsules are based around the same design as the one that's used in the Elly FET. So I keep saying FET, but what does that mean? Well, a FET, F-E-T, is an electronic transistor that took the place of the vacuum tube long ago, whose nature allows for a really wide dynamic range before clipping. When Neumann decided to start using FETs in their mics, the U47 was one of the first to be converted, which created a second iconic mic with the 47 designation, and became known as one of the top bass and kick mics out there, and was still detailed and retained enough top end to be a killer vocal mic as well. The U87, while it has a different capsule, is also a FET-based mic. This type of transistor is famous for being able to handle high levels at low frequencies without distorting, and doesn't color the signal as much as, say, a germanium transistor does, which is a different type of transistor. Back to the capsule real quick. The K7 is claimed to be a perfect recreation of the K47 capsule from Neumann. This is a single backplate capsule, meaning it can only have a single polar pattern. The difficulties in making a capsule like this is that it has both through holes, which go completely through the backplate, clever name, and blind holes, which don't go through the entire backplate and help to tune or voice the capsule. The position and placement of these holes is a science unto itself. The capsule uses a 6-micron DuPont Mylar as opposed to a 3-micron Mylar found in a lot of the cheaper capsules. This makes a huge difference in how the capsule will react to different frequencies. Lighter material, more high-end, and not in a good way, which is why I tend to try and mod mics with cheaper capsules and try to tame that high end. So I need another mic like I need another hole in my head, but when we did our crazy drum recording project, my buddy Mikhail brought his Elly FET over to put outside the kick drum. I was thoroughly impressed with the sound of that, and kind of FOMO took hold and my wallet opened and things happened, and yeah. Anyway, I can quit anytime I want. So this thing shows up at my door a couple weeks later. The mic shipped in a fancy cloth-covered semi-hard case. I say semi-hard since it keeps its shape, but can be deformed with enough pressure on any one of the faces of the box. Definitely not something I'd want to throw in a, flight situation or something like that. Inside is a Beesneez branded mic cable of about 12 feet or 4 meters or so. In the molded base of the case, there's a standard clasp shock mount with a 3/8 adapter and the mic itself. The mic itself is very bottom heavy. The metalwork is 380 grade solid brass. Even though this is the lower line of construction for Beesneez, the metal feels really good. The powder coat on it is textured, which will help the mic to not slip out of the provided shock mount. There's no threaded stem on the bottom of this mic, so there's no chance of using a solid mount, which, for what I'm using it for, probably would have preferred, but I get it. The windscreen is dual layer and soft. You don't want to be pressing on this with any kind of force, you will damage it. There are 3 screws that allow for access into the body of the mic, should that be needed. Probably won't be, though. The internals of the mic have changed over the years, and since Beesneez recently got a pick-and-place machine, I can see that they've been putting that to great use on the newer models. A new sleek, clean circuit design with everything that's needed and nothing that's not. While the mic doesn't feature one of the famed toroidal transformers, it does have a Beesneez E-core single-spool transformer and features what look to be metal film resistors that are a hybrid between through-hole and surface mount. The capsule is clearly a handmade work of art. Sonically, the mic is spec'd to have an almost linear response up to the upper mids, and above 2K there's a slight boost of 2 to 3 dB, which then starts to roll off around 17K. There are no plotted graphs available for the frequency or polar pattern. The mic is listed as 150 ohms, which is a low impedance and will be loaded nicely from just about any mic preamp out there. The max SPL is listed at 130 dB, but no frequency is given for that, so not really sure what that's meaning. Most companies use 1K, but as we've seen in the past, 1K doesn't really tell you the whole story of a mic. The mic also claims a self-noise of 17 dB A-weighted. With that out of the way, let's take the mic into the studio and put it up on some usual suspects and see how it handles. Since I got this mic as mainly a bass and kick mic, I'm going to be using the mic on the drum set as an outside kick mic, the same many people use the Neumann FET 47 for. Let's go. Well, that's always fun and time-consuming. Not so fun fact, on average, it takes over 6 hours to get all of these tests done, and even longer when we have our guests do takes, and that's not counting editing time to put in the format that you see on the screen. So, what did we think of this mic versus other K47 and FET mics? The Elly FET sells for about $570 USD at the time of this recording, which fluctuates with currency exchange rates. The base price is listed at 840 Australian dollar dues. We compared it to the Roswell Mini K47, which sells for about 380 USD and is electronically balanced, and the Soyuz 1973, which sells for around 800 USD and is a FET mic with quite a different capsule design. This mic definitely fits in between those two sonically, construction-wise, and financially. What did you think of the sound of it, though? The cost of the mic being a boutique item is certainly not exorbitant. Their other lines of mics are certainly pricey, but not out of line for what you're getting. The studio line is well within reach for most professional purposes, but with the exception of the SDCs, aren't something I'd want to take out on the road. Not that I'd want to take the other mics on the road either. I mean, these are clearly studio tools meant to be used in controlled environments. I've used, I think, 4 of their mics now, 2 of them being 2 different eras of the Elly FET, and a couple of others, the 87, and I've used a 47. The quality on every mic I've used of theirs is absolutely superb. They all looked and sounded great. But what are the downsides to it? I would have loved a hard clip or a mount option for this mic, especially for sideways mounting and for kick use. The shock mount, while functional, doesn't really lend itself to being suspended sideways over the piano, and it's kind of bulky. For most other applications, it works fine. I'm not a huge fan of the pressure clasp shock mounts either, as they do lose their grip over time as the rubber wears down, but the texture on the mic body I think will help out with this a little bit, so I'm not too worried about that, but it can happen. As far as the mic goes, I think Beesneez has found a happy middle ground with this line. The price isn't outrageous, and you're getting a really solidly built and sounding mic with a great capsule in it. Is it a Neumann? No. Does it do the job and sound good? Hell yeah. While I bought the mic primarily as an outside kick mic, this mic can be used for quite a few other jobs, as we've seen. Sound on piano and bass was more than usable. In fact, I kind of liked it quite a bit. I'm not a fan of condensers on electric guitar, so I'm not going to really comment on that. For voice, though, it's definitely usable as long as you don't need filters, patterns, or extra pads. Beesneez is definitely expanding its operation almost out of the boutique category, since they're not really hand building the mics, but since they're still only doing direct sales, I'd still like to keep them on that mom and pop shop category for now. Once we start seeing the mics at bigger retailers is when that kind of moves out of that space. Let me know what you think of the mic in the comments below. If you have any other questions or comments, please drop me a line. If you're using any of the Beesneez mics, let me know which one and how you're using it and what you're using it on. I read every message and usually reply if needed, but if you want to get in touch with me, hit me through the website. If you have any suggestions for a future video, please let me know. I love getting suggestions for things. In fact, I've done a bunch of videos based on suggestions. I've gotten a few requests now for some German-made mics that aren't Sennheiser or Neumann, along with some ribbons that I've had my eye on for a long time from the UK. Hope to get to those soon if I can. If you've gotten anything from today's video, please consider hitting that like button. If you want to help the channel out, consider hitting that subscribe button. If you want to be notified when we drop a new video, hit the notify button, even though it doesn't work most of the time. We just hit over 3,000 subs. I would love to keep the channel growing. If you guys could help out, that would be amazing. If you want to help out financially, consider becoming a member. I have a couple of really oddball videos in the works for members and that kind of focus more on the DIY side of things, and a bunch of the upcoming drum videos Mikhail and I will be working on will be members-only videos as well. That's going to do it for this time. This is Pags, signing off. So, I need another mic like I need a... The last line is the studio line, which Ben referred to as the everyday hammer line. The last line is the studio line, which Ben has referred to as the everyday hammer line. That, with higher inductance, which leaves the mic's tonal click... The toroidal transformer allows...